Hello, and welcome to The Difference. This is a radio and podcast created for realtors, entrepreneurs, small business owners, and business professionals who are looking for a way to make the difference in their careers, their business-to-business relationships, their industries, and in their communities. And each week we bring in professionals just like you guys watching to talk a little bit about the things that they have done to make the difference in their careers and their businesses. And today, we have a special guest. His name is Jaron Liverman. He is running for U.S. Congress in the 24th District, correct?
Yes, sir.
And we're going to talk a little bit about minding your business and the impact that politics has on us small business people. Before we get to Jaron, I'm going to introduce our co-host here. To my left, I've got James Kern with Delicate Moving, and across from him, I have Brian Dobbs. Brian is a published author. Got it right again.
Yes, you did.
I am 2 for 3 right now.
You are awesome.
That's not bad. And we'll start with Brian. Brian wrote a book, got it published, really good. It's called Uniquely Called, and I'm going to let him talk about that. But this book, Jaron, is for you.
Oh, thank you.
And that's from Brian. We want to share that. So, Brian, tell everybody watching who you are and what you're all about.
Well, especially, it's a great time. At 2020, we're in February. What is it, the 12th today? Right, or the 11th? 11th today. Thank you very much for helping me with that.
You're welcome. That's what
I don't have that in my notes. So, but the Uniquely Called, it's about you finding your purpose, understanding that you have a purpose, and being able to utilize that knowledge base and then working your whole life into fulfilling it, from relationships to business to hobbies, activities, even health. So,
or being a congressman, right?
Or being a congressman.
Right.
If that's your gift and you want to go into politics, then
Right.
that book will help you.
Yes.
I'm going to read it before tomorrow. Nice form then.
And so, Uniquely Called, understanding your calling will actually help you find your passion, would it not?
Yes, it
Because if
will.
you don't know what you're called to do, how can you be passionate about it?
Correct.
All right. So, all right. Well, great job on the book. Thanks for bringing another one.
Thank you.
And next to me, James Kern with Delicate Moving. James has been a regular co-host helping us out here. We appreciate
Yes.
that. And also a sponsor of the show. Couldn't do it without him and all the others. We'll talk about those soon. But James, tell everybody about you and Delicate Moving.
Well, we are in the moving and storage business. I've been in this business nearly 20 years now. We've been in business about 30 prior to my ownership. And we full-service moving company, provide storage, packing, help with staging, whether it's a small move or a large move. We're here for you. Use full-time movers, no day labor, no temporary help, and small business that can do big moves, small moves, do it all.
All right. All right. Across from me, our special guest of the hour, Jaron Liverman. You and I met by phone, I guess, a month ago? Maybe a month?
Correct.
Looking at your website, I just want to tell everybody a little bit. Running for office in the 24th District, pro-life, pro-states' rights, pro-border control, pro-Second Amendment, pro-First Amendment. Can't have the first without the second. Pro-term limits, reducing federal taxes, reducing federal spending, and reducing federal regulation. I like all of those.
I do too.
So tell us, and everybody watching, who you are and how this journey began.
I guess the best way to explain to everybody who I am is to just let's just back up and give you a little history of who Jaron Liverman is. That's me. So my mother and father, they had 4 sons, and my father had 2 sons from a prior wife. So I'm the youngest of 6 boys, and I'm also an identical twin. So unfortunately, 2 of my brothers have passed away. One half brother, and then my identical twin brother. My half brother passed away from a wound that he took on from a gunshot. He was shot and killed with a shotgun. And then my identical twin brother passed away in a car accident. A drunk driver crossed the middle of a highway one afternoon many years ago, and took his life. So that gives you a little bit of backdrop as to just kind of a little bit of insight. But we'll fast forward. I graduated Texas Christian University in 1992 with a Bachelor of Science in Political Science. So from that perspective, I have the bug of political nature in me, and I've always been aware and kept up with it over the years. Since graduating Texas Christian University, I have been a entrepreneur or solopreneur. I have been a real estate agent and an associated broker. I have been a real estate investor. I've done all aspects of real estate. For 28 plus years, I have listened to individuals and families through the years. And when you're a real estate agent and you've been in it as long as I have, you get to sit down across the table much like this from families, and you get to share with the triumphs of families who are on the way up the ladder of success, and you get to share with families who unfortunately are on the way down the ladders of failure. You get to see both sides, and you get to learn a few things about people and families over the years, and to the extent that you can be their fiduciary and represent their best foot forward in both of those directions, that's part of who I have been real estate-wise in terms of a salesperson. I've also been a real estate investor. I have bought about anywhere from 14 to 15 homes on my own and another 35 with a partner. And over the years, I've also been a property manager. I've had 10 to 14 rentals, and at some point in the game, I got tired of what I'm going to metaphorically, but I'm being positive here, is say I got out of the rental business or the adult daycare. And I'm not being negative toward people who are rental properties, but that's just how I felt as a landlord. I didn't need any more of those stresses in my life. So I sold my stresses, and I have a family. I have a 12-year-old daughter. She's the pride and joy of my life. In fact, when I lost my twin brother, I was in a deep spot for about 20 years, a very difficult spot to pick myself up from. But it was in that delivery room at the moment that when my beautiful daughter was born, that the brick, all the weight of life and losing a twin brother was lifted from me. And so I attribute my life being saved to some extent to my daughter's birth.
Awesome.
Her mother and I have been together for 20 plus years, and she's a wonderful lady. And in fact, her mother lives with us too. Her father lived with us. My parents are both deceased. I took care of my father had a cerebral stroke in 2016, a massive stroke, and then I would go over to his house every day the last 45, 50 days of his life, and I would walk him in the wheelchair, whether it was raining or sunshine or not. I would bathe him and clean him up and do all the things that people who are who have a lack of dignity point of their life due to illness or whatnot. And before he died in my arms, my mother, she was already ill. So fast forward, she passed away in July of this last year, and we did the best for her as well. My father-in-law, he had advanced Parkinson's, so we took care of him at our house, and I experienced more lack of dignity, end of life things that occurred, and so God bless his soul, he passed away, and then Kathy's mother also lives with us, but I'm going to keep any of that lack of dignity stuff to myself at the moment because
Sure.
she's still alive.
Sure. Jaron, we want to go to a commercial break real quick, so hold that thought. We'll come right back. Thank you guys for tuning in. We've got a pretty good audience so far. Wanted to say before we break here, last week's show, we had about 3,500 viewers. We're really excited about that. And thank you all for tuning in and watching. And hang with us. We'll be right back.
3, 2, 1. KVGIRadio.com.
Y'all have really just opened my bubble and just...
KVGI Radio brings you conversation and entertainment. Be sure to follow us on social media. Who streams the best talk shows? We do.
listening to KVGIRadio.com. Streaming live from the KVGI studios in Frisco, Texas. Live without limits.
And we are back. Thank you guys for hanging around through that short commercial break. We are live here today with Jaron Liverman, congressional candidate for the 24th District. Jaron was just sharing some personal background on him and who he is. And so, Jaron, we want to pick up there. If you've got anything else left, and I know Brian has some really good questions for you. I'm going to put you on the spot today.
That's okay. That's what I'm here for. Part of the reason I was telling you about death and tragedy and where my background is because I firmly believe that part of our problem of not knowing who the elected officials are is you don't know anything about them. And I think it's important that if someone's going to cast a vote, that they have insight as to what makes that person tick. And so I've had to triumph over tragedy, personally speaking. And that gives me a level of hindsight. Because of hindsight, it gives me a level of insight into what other people also experience in their personal lives. And because I'm not alone in what I've experienced, other people, we all have our unique problems, and we all have our unique triumphs.
I couldn't agree more. And I think it does help to really understand who we're voting for, not just what we're voting for. Brian?
Well, and it also helps on just being able to be real and have a relationship. That relation is very important. And we talk about that. I think we talk about it at least one time every show, if not every
relational
time,
versus transactional,
because it is all relational. So one of the things, Jaron, and thanks for sharing about your life and your story and your journey. I love learning, and I love learning about people and hearing. One of the things that even recently, we just don't judge people's journey because you just don't know what they're going through or how they got there. But the great thing is that we can glean and we can really, really encourage one another as well as learn from one another. So you went to TCU, you graduated with a degree in political science.
Bachelor of Science. Yes,
a Bachelor of Science. And then that bug. So whenever we talk about a bug, and this is where I get a little more passionate and excited, because it's that passion. So I went to Bible college, and I have this insatiable desire to go impact society and impact community. So
make the difference.
Yes, it is the difference.
I know.
So going from college and then getting into real estate. Well, I went from Bible college and I went directly into real estate as well. So we do have some similarity on that. Now you've taken I'm not going to say major, but you've taken a leap to tie in with that bug that you had that I want to learn more about into the political stage or the political arena. So can you help me understand what that bug? So I know that it's not just a bug term. Now flesh that out for me a little bit and let me know what were the passion chords that really you hung on to since college all the way to where you are now. You've been married for over 20 years. You have a beautiful 12-year-old daughter. You have family history. You have this amazing journey and story. But that one passion chord that has driven you to where you're at now, that's what I'd like to learn.
I guess the long story short, when the greatest of all political outsiders took the presidency, Donald Trump, that sparked my interest. If the greatest of all political outsiders can do it, albeit he has money, that helps.
A little bit.
But if he can conquer the insiders, if he can conquer the all the structure that prevents people from getting into politics, well, that doorway has been opened, and so that doorway being opened, it sparked it re-sparked the curiosities and interests that I had over the prior 2 decades. And then right before my mother passed away, she had reminded me that I had a political interest, and she told me I should go forward and at least do it. So she passed away in July, and then I had remembered what she said, and I said, you know what, if I'm going to do this, let's do this. And so I reached out to various political insiders and other people who are not from the inside who have also reached out to insiders, probably came across the same answers in some manner of speaking as I have, and that is that the insiders have already chosen their appointed, anointed person, and I was not that person. So they gave me all of the advice they could as to stay out, stay away, and the more people I talked to, the more my flame lit up. And it wasn't that I was insulted or personally offended. It was, this is not right. This is not what we would consider a democracy. A democracy is open to everybody. And I want to give people, not just myself, but I want to give other people a choice, a true choice that is not the choice of the political elite. And that is the reason why I declared my candidacy, is for people to have a compassionate choice that is not inside the system, but is from outside the system.
Having heard that and getting that advice from other people, were there some aspects or some times that you were still surprised at how ingrained the system is and the people within the system are?
Hearing the conversations, it was just the words of a few individuals who I respected, but since I have opened the door, so to speak, and declared my candidacy since September 5 onward, I have been exposed. I have lifted up the covers and got to look under them, metaphorically speaking, and the claws of the insiders are everywhere, and it is difficult to overcome. But I'm peeling each layer back one at a time, and to the extent that I succeed, I guess we will find out on March the 3rd.
All right. So how's the campaign going? Other than those challenges, I mean,
that's a good question, and I'll tell you this: I did not know this when I declared, but the one surprise that I have discovered since I have jumped into the race is I have discovered who I am. I thought I knew who I was, but there is nothing like putting yourself out to the public and having the public grind you and grill you and question you every day for 4 or 5 months while you put everything on hold in your life, including your work. I'm doing this 100%. I suspended all of my business activities because you can't serve 2 masters. And I am the only candidate in District 24 who went out and was petitioned onto the ballot by the voters. I walked to over 2,000 homes and venues, and I spoke to more than 1,000 people. And yes, I put myself out there, and yes, I got the strangest questions, and I got the funniest questions, and I got people who slammed their doors in my face. I got people who welcomed me in. We even had one elderly gentleman in Carrollton. He came to the door wearing nothing but his underwear, and he invited myself and my volunteer in. And I was like, no, I don't think I
got a busy day today.
I'll let my volunteer handle this signature. And he's like, no, I don't think so either. But that was funny. We've had several funny events that have occurred. So, but in the process, I have discovered who I am, and I'll get more on that as the show goes on.
All right, Brian, you got more?
Yeah, and I don't want to take away from you, James. Do you have any?
I'm just listening, enjoying.
I'm
not scared to interrupt.
I can see it over here.
I'm not scared to interrupt.
He's ready.
So you keep going.
He's getting ready. He's just loaded with questions.
So Jaron, what I'm hearing is, one, that the barrier was basically broken, that we can go outside the box into an arena that wasn't quite. It was more exclusive versus inclusive, is what I'm understanding. Is that correct?
Well, there is a barrier. Have I broken it? I don't know. Time will tell. The verdict is out on that. But did Donald Trump break it? In my opinion, yes.
Well, right.
I think it's important to add the word hope here.
Okay.
Because before Donald Trump, maybe someone like Jaron didn't think there was really any true hope and it would just be spinning your wheels and a waste of time. But because Trump did what he did at the level he did it, that provided
Against
people on
all
both
odds.
sides of the political aisle
Right.
hope that they could come in and have success and make a difference. No pun intended, right?
Right.
But that's the case. So Trump gave people that had a political calling, maybe so to speak, or this bug. He gave them hope that they could, realize their dream of impacting our country through serving in political office.
Absolutely. Love that. So we go from getting the hope, breaking the barrier through our president to mom's influence. And I've got to emphasize this. This is really important because when you have the people, either your mother or your dad or somebody, a significant other close to you, and they encourage you because they have eyes to see that we can't see because we get fog and we get clouded in a lot of things that we're doing, and they're like, "Hey, listen, you really were passionate about that. You were really hopeful about that arena. You could talk all day in that one avenue or that one venue. You need to go do that." And I love that statement that you made because guess what? We need those influences in our life, especially in the times that we live in. And then it brought you to a compassionate choice that you wanted to, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but just the way I'm understanding this is that you, in your political career and the political stage that you're going in, is that you want to help people have that choice and to exercise that choice and to live free. Is that correct, or am I putting words in there?
No, it is correct, and I would enhance that by saying that all too often we as the voters, and I'm a voter too, we don't feel like we're being listened to. They may hear us, but they're not listening. And to the extent that if I am elected, I want people to know that they actually have a set of ears that will actually listen to what their concerns are and do the best to implement what the best pathway possible is.
Excellent. So we do need to exercise our voice.
We do.
If we don't use it, we'll lose it, right?
Well, and I think that you're exactly right. And to what you said, Donald Trump broke some barriers. I mean, he did what he did against all odds. 16, 17, 18 people he ran against in the primaries. None of them liked him or wanted him. And then he had to go against the Democratic political machine. Whatever side you're on, that's politics. That's the way it was. And he was able to do that when people told him he couldn't and didn't want him to. I mean, that's obviously enough people wanted him to. He got elected. Thank God for the Electoral College, I guess. But that does give power back to the people. I think that, I know I did when I saw it. I'm like, there's still hope. Votes do count. Voters do count. And I think it starts at all levels. But to be able to believe that it's not set in stone who's going to represent us. No one else is deciding who it is, and we have the choices they give us rather than the choices that are around us, right?
Correct.
And I really applaud you for that. I think that that's awesome. I mean, I told you before, my father ran for political office when I was in the 6th grade, county judge, small county in Arkansas. But I've had the political bug ever since then. I would never run for office. I got a lot to say, but nobody wants to hear it. Anyway, it amazes me at the effect that the elected officials have on our lives, and we're not paying attention. And that's why I wanted to have you on the show. And we want to talk about your pro-business agenda and being a businessman, how that's given you some unique insight. There's a lot of politicians that are running our country that's never owned anything.
That's too bad because in owning things, you bring a different level of insight. You bring a different perspective, if you would, versus if you've never done anything.
Well, let me interrupt you right there because I think that's important. If you have never put yourself and your family and your finances at risk, you don't know what loss feels like, especially when you have an unending bank account thanks to the taxpayers, and you can keep putting out agendas that whether they succeed or fail, it doesn't cost you personally. And so when you put someone into office that has lost, that has experienced failure on a personal and professional level, I think that they do think they have a mindset much more like the people that voted for them. Would you agree?
I would. I have never, personally, I've never worked for a corporation. I've never worked for the government. Every penny that I have made has been a penny earned by Garen Liverman. And so when I spend the pennies that I earn, I know where they came from, and I know the value that those pennies represent because it was my effort and my time and my energy that managed to, you know, attract them and put them in my coffers, so to speak. So then I could go out and put them in other people's coffers when I do my spending.
Right. And as a business owner that is responsible not only for your family's financial well-being, a lot of times there are people that work for you, and you're responsible for theirs as well. I think that some of these politicians that have gotten into office that have never had that responsibility, you don't understand the fear that comes along with your performance, that you've got to get it right. It's almost like in Washington, it doesn't matter if they get it wrong. They don't suffer. We suffer. They don't suffer.
That would be the appearance. I obviously I don't speak from their perspective, but that would certainly be the appearance that I share with you on that.
Okay.
So,
Excuse me.
so to me, I look at the biggest difference between the Democrat Party and the Republican Party from a position on the issues is really the thing that separates is really the role of the government, the purpose of government. And so not to get into other issues because we're focusing on business today. How does your, because I'm looking down your list of things that you're in favor of or against here. How does your role of the government influence your pro-business positions, or how does that influence what you want to do to help businesses? Because without businesses, there are no jobs, and with no jobs, there's no economy. And so I think there are some businesses and some big corporations that are giving people, a bad taste in their mouth, so to speak. They don't feel like these big companies are paying taxes and things like that. But with our small businesses, how do you want to influence small businesses to help us?
Well, let's look at it. Let's look at that from a triangular perspective, and I'll bring in the political parties because that was part of your question. From my perspective, you could say, and this would be my point of view, I am a Republican. I am of the grand old party philosophy, and that would be the individual sovereignty, and then the state's sovereignty, and then the federal sovereignty in that direction. But at least from my opinion, the Democratic view from the other side is federal sovereignty, then state sovereignty, then individual sovereignty in that direction. So in other words, you could say that Jaron Liverman, myself, I believe that you should be empowered to make the best decisions for you and your family first and foremost, and then to the extent that you have to obey the rules that exist by way of regulations and whatnot, and that's how you proceed. But from the Democratic perspective, the government knows best. They know more about you and your life and how and where you should take you and your family than what you do. So from a political perspective, that would be the two paradigm shifts, and I am of the Republican shift.
Mm-hmm. I happen to agree with that.
Me too. Seems to work well. Brian, more questions?
More questions.
I won't
Okay.
put you on the spot.
No,
I
you're
see
fine.
you over there just writing. You're ready.
Well, I have a lot to say over here.
All right,
Do I ever not have a lot to say?
go ahead.
But if it's
Typically
not on
not.
his notes, he won't remember it. So go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, thank you, James. Okay, so I teach business and I enjoy it. I have an affinity for the marketplace and passion for impacting people. So when I look at business, it's goods/services exchanged from one party to another party, which actually creates a point of impact. So where I'm going to like dovetail into James' comment, what is your role in supporting, or what bullet points can you give us, whether it's 1, 3, or 5, that you would support small businesses that we can do a better job at goods and services exchanged in order to have a point of impact, meaning that we want to have a better families or better communities or better neighborhoods or better access to other venues or experiences for our city, our region, our state, our nation, etc.
Not I'm not sure exactly what your question is, but let me say this, for example. This might help answer. Let's take small businesses. What's important to small businesses? A stable workforce. Okay, we can agree on a stable workforce. How do you keep a stable workforce? Well, you keep them healthy. So from that perspective, you have health insurance. Health insurance is extremely important. Affordable health insurance is even more important. Most the Department of Labor redefined in last year in August of 2019 what the definition of a working owner is, and what the working owner is now, or at least what it was before a lawsuit changed it again, was that an employer can also be an employee. And the reason why that was so very important was because before the district court, a federal court in the District of Columbia had a lawsuit filed by 12 liberal states and their attorneys generals to change the definition back to the way it was, is because that would have made insurance more affordable by allowing working owners to be able to collectively bargain as larger groups with insurance companies, thereby in theory reducing the insurance premiums, which would put more money into the working owners' hands and their employees' hands, and then they could spend that money on their families. The reason why we have working owners who struggle is because regulations and special interests do not allow, more options to come to the table, like what I just said. As a candidate, and if I'm elected, I will go forward with legislation that will support and codify, if you would, legislation that would make a working owner be defined as an employer and an employee, and that way you can collectively jump into association health plans, for example, which those groups can then bargain on your behalf because you're larger than yourself when you're part of a group. And from that perspective, you're able to negotiate with insurance companies, which will lower your premiums. I know it's not the answer to your question, but I didn't quite understand where you were going.
Well, you're going through the bullet points, Sharon. So my question might have been a little bit murky there. So one way that you're going to support small businesses is health insurance.
Health insurance.
Okay.
Healthcare.
What's another area that we could look at?
Well, the reduction of part of my platform is reduce federal regulations. It's not enough to reduce regulations. Should everybody who opens up for business, should every single person who opens up for business be required to have a license? Regulations should be for safety and health. Not everybody needs a license. Licenses, to a great extent, is nothing more than revenue enhancements for the governments.
Right.
And so I would try to cut the red tapes and reduce licenses where they're not really required. And in doing so, that will allow small businesses, instead of being prohibited at the get-go, it will release the shackles, if you would, and allow them to go forward and thrive and go and make more money for their families.
Absolutely.
And that's funny because I agree with that, but I'm actually in a business where licensing is good because we're moving people's their possessions, and we're putting them on a truck. And so anybody can call themselves a mover. I mean, they can go rent a U-Haul truck. They can, in fact, we did that when we first got started. We didn't have the capital to buy trucks, but we were licensed. And so to keep the honest companies out there in business, being able to continue to offer their services at a rate that's competitive, but still allows us to pay the bills, which allows us to stay in business. We do need licensing because there's guys that go out and just rent a truck, call themselves a mover, and then you have enough of those companies, if I could even call them a company, that are stealing business, taking business away from the legitimate companies, and it lowers the rate so much that it's difficult. So I'm with you on that. I just happen to be in a business where licensing is important to keep all the scoundrels out.
Well, there's two sides to every coin.
Yeah.
And I'm not advocating that everybody
Yeah, no, I agree with
should
you.
not have a license.
Yeah.
But in certain industries, I've seemed to have lost my, it's at the tip of my tongue. I'd give you some examples, but I just don't have any at this very moment on the spot.
No, I'm with you, though.
But I mean, tell me a little bit about the ones, like if you didn't have a license and the people were doing a crappy job, they're not going to stay in business long. How does that, I mean, where's the long-term impact?
Well,
with you?
honestly, because we have a license, we are up under the Department of Motor Vehicles, which says that we have certain liabilities, and so that we have to have certain insurance.
Okay.
So if we move you and we damage your furniture, then we have insurance to cover that. Now it is a limited liability,
Right.
but it's
Okay,
not the wild wild west where if you go out and get a moving, rent a truck and you tell Brian, hey, we're going to move you this weekend, and then you tear up $5,000 worth of stuff. What is he going to do about that? Is he going to sue you personally? Is he going? No, but the state has ensured that because you're licensed or I'm licensed, that now there's repercussions for us. There's accountability, and we have insurance.
Okay.
So that's the big thing.
Okay. So I have another question now. Is there not a way that's optional, being licensed and being registered, and being able to? I mean, that's kind of freedom, right? You have the freedom to. You have the freedom not to. As a mover, I have the freedom to find someone that's licensed and responsible, or I can roll my dice and hire Brian that hasn't only moved but once, and doesn't know how to drive.
That's
So
called the free market.
that's a free market,
And,
right?
and that's the perspective that I come from. I mean, licenses are important in some industries, absolutely. But the free market, I am a free market person. I am a capitalist. I believe in the free market principles, and I believe that through competition, those that put their best foot forward and it shows that their best foot is forward, those companies are going to go forward and thrive. And those that, for whatever reason, the public has chosen through lack of progress or through whatever the negative reason is, they're probably not going to prosper.
Right.
That's free market.
Right. All right. Time to take another commercial break. When we get back, I want to thank some of our sponsors, and then we're going to talk a little bit more about business and politics. So you guys, thanks for tuning in. Hang in there with us. We'll be right back.
3, 2, 1. KVGIRadio.com.
Y'all have really just opened my bubble and just.
KVGI Radio brings you conversation and entertainment. Be sure to follow us on social media. Who streams the best talk shows? We do.
You're listening to KVGIRadio.com. Streaming live from the KVGI studios in Frisco, Texas. Live without limits.
Welcome back. Thank you guys for tuning in, hanging around for our commercial break. We're here today live with Jaron Liverman, 24th District Congressional candidate. And before we get started and talk a little bit more about politics and business, I want to give some shout outs to the people that make the show happen. Holly Haggard with Geneva Financial. She wants you to know that she doesn't just work 8 to 5. She works start to finish. She's been in the mortgage industry for over 18 years. Knowledge, contract dates, low rates, all are important, but she goes beyond that. Holly actually has a personalized financial plan that she shares with her clients, and when followed properly, can make the difference in their home buying experience. I also want to say thank you to Adam and Liz Terrell of the Real Estate Triangle. If you're in the real estate industry, support industry, whatever it may be, and you're looking for people to partner with or to share referrals and to actually have that concierge service, then I would recommend going to the Real Estate Triangle. It's on Facebook. They're actually in about 9 or 7 cities: Dallas, Waco, Austin, Tulsa, Oklahoma City, Las Vegas, Little Rock, and Northwest Arkansas. I want to thank Adam and Liz for their strong support of our show. James Kern sitting beside me with Delicate Moving. He told you all about him. He's pretty good. If you're moving, don't hire a friend. It's not worth it's not worth the case of beer. I'm telling you right now.
And he has a license.
He does have a license. Brian Poduska actually was with him this morning. Thank you, Brian, for inviting me to that event. Brian Poduska owns Real Property Management Focus. He's the owner and president of Real Property Management Focus office here in Frisco. And he believes communication, action, and integrity are the cornerstones of world-class service. So if you're looking for someone to help you with your property management, give Brian a call. Josh Small, WeatherTech General Contracting, remodeling, roofing, all construction and home building. WeatherTech, if you're a real estate agent and you're looking for someone to partner with as far as your roofing and remodeling, then give Josh a call at WeatherTech. All of these sponsors you can find on our website, and that website is www.hashtag.thedifference or -thedifference.com. We have all of them listed there and how to contact them.
Honest and contractor are not two words that always go together, but they do with Josh.
They do with Josh.
I just want to put that in.
They really
love
do.
Josh and what they do.
Josh is he's a stand-up guy. I've known
Yes.
him for a long time. So let's get back and talk a little bit more about business and politics. And Jaron, you and I had a good conversation yesterday, and we talked about term limit.
Yes.
We hear it often. I think a lot of people want it, except for maybe those people that have been up there 10, 20, 30 years. But give us your position on term limits, because I think that's important. I think that it helps you focus on serving the people rather than serving your career. Those are just my opinions. I have strong opinions. Don't say I'm right, but
Well, I'm pro term limits. I am, let's just start from the beginning. George Washington did not know he was pro term limits, but he somehow dazzled the world with fame because he conquered the most powerful country at the time in the military. And then a few years later, he found himself president of the very country that he helped create. And then after 8 years, when he could have had whatever he wanted, he could have been a dictator, he could have been a monarch, he could have been many things, at least that's what I've read, who knows, he stepped down. And because of his small act, little moments have big consequences. Many years later, after one person was president longer than their fair share, we're talking about Roosevelt, we came up and we passed an amendment that said the president can only serve 2 terms plus 2 years of someone else's term. So term limits do work. They can work. They work at the presidential level. I believe they should work at the congressional level too. I think 12 years is long enough to do what you need to do, and if you can't solve it in 12 years, you need to get out of the way and let someone else do it. So I advocate 12 years. I'm pro term limits for 12 years at the federal level, at the state level also. But this is where I've evolved, and this is where the conversation that you and I had yesterday on the phone went. I believe you should do more than just term the politician. I think you should term the deep state or the bureaucracy behind them, because that is where the claws of change need to occur. It's not good enough just to throw the image, the person who's the politician out, and that may be the wrong phrase, so excuse my language, and I'm here in the moment. But you need to get rid of the bureaucracy that is behind. That's the stone wall, if you would. If you really want change, you need to You need to cycle everybody that is in our government and out, everybody. And to the extent that you can do that, people say, well, how do you do that? They're not going to vote for term limits on themselves. You're probably right. So we need to do an Article 5, constitutional Article 5 amendment, and let it go to the states. And let's let the states pass this legislation that would require people to cycle in and out of office at the federal, state, and bureaucracy.
Awesome.
So I'm in favor of term limits, but I had this question in the break.
Yeah.
So what do we do about the congressman who's on his way out in his last term? Let's say he's in the last term by law. So what would that be if you serve a 2 term? So his 6th term, right? What do we do about him passing out favors because there's no accountability now? Just like a president may do pardons and certain things in their last term because they know there's no accountability. What do we do to stop that?
Well, I was asked at the Grapevine debate on a not the same topic, but the same answer applies. You cannot legislate behavior. So how do you stop someone from handing out favors? Well, you elect people who are morally grounded to begin with, and to the extent that they stay morally grounded, they're probably not going to hand out favors. That would be my opinion. It's not really you just can't legislate behavior.
Yeah. That's the one downside of term limits.
And there's always going
Because
to be
through that time in D.C., you get corrupted and you get people who help you get another term and they need a favor. And so then when you have no more accountability, when you're not going to run anymore, you can,
Right.
do some things. So
And
anyway, that's the one negative.
No, and I agree. I think that as we talked about yesterday, kind of with the income thing that I was talking to you about, there's always going to be some layers of that onion that when peeled back, you go, oh, we didn't think about that, or maybe we did think about that, but we couldn't implement anything. But term limits is where it starts. And then we work on those other problems as we move through it.
I believe the Constitution is perfectible through time.
Yeah.
So if we were to install term limits, like Lyndon is stating, are we going to get everything right at the get-go? Probably not. But through time, things will present themselves in the positive and in the negative. And as those things present themselves, well, we present the counter to that, which would be the legislation at that time in the future.
Yeah, I think term limits is better than what we have.
I was going to say,
that's the
what would be worse, having career politicians doing what they're doing now, or having some that share some favors as they leave? I'd like to see this problem of a lifetime in politics and nothing accomplished eliminated.
I mean, there's pros and cons to it, right? I mean, there are benefits to people understanding how to get legislation passed, which is important. We need legislation passed, right? So there is a value in that. But I think the downside of having these career politicians probably outweighs having experts in there that know how things work. But I mean, then you got to figure out, are we going to have enough people who want to subject themselves to the nonsense that comes along with serving in political office? I mean, to me, there's not enough good candidates as there is right now. There's not enough gerunds out there that are doing this for the right reasons. So how do we get more people to want to do that? Maybe clean up the swamp first?
Absolutely. I mean, who would want to get in the middle of it and be, let's take Kavanaugh going through the Supreme Court. Who wants to go through that gauntlet of false accusations, which I think needs to be cleared up as well? I cannot stand the fact that politicians can say what they want to say without repercussion of it being untrue. And I don't want to get in too deep with, but Adam Schiff and what he has done over the past 3 years, and to be able to just say it, and some people believe him, some people don't. He doesn't have to prove it, but the damage that they do, the good and decent people are steering clear of that. So, there's two obstacles. One is being not entrenched in the good old boy system, and the other one is knowing that if you go up against them, you're going to be crucified, rightly or wrongly. Would you? Why would any decent, moral human being want to put themselves through that? Jaron?
Well, I am a decent, moral
Yes.
human being, and I am putting myself through it to the extent that I'm experiencing what I'm experiencing because I care.
Absolutely.
Because I want to effect positive change. And if elected, then obviously I'll be on the inside, and maybe I can then call you back in year or two and answer the question based on what I see from the other side of the fence. But you know, I think that people who love their country, people who are patriotic, you will always find a line for it'll be a long line indeed, but you will always find a long line of people who want to serve, regardless of the consequences of being what they're going to have to go through to get to the end point. I'm not worried about will there be people who want to run. That will always occur.
Let me ask you this. So when we look at all the things that you're for or against, I know that'll line up. I mean, that'll be a definite contrast between you and your Democrat opponent if you get out of the primary. But what sets you apart versus your primary opponent? Because I would think that most Republicans are going to be at least 80 or 90% in agreement with you in word, in an advertisement. That doesn't mean they're necessarily going to legislate that way, but serve that way. So what do you think sets you apart from your opponent right now? Or how many opponents do you have in this primary?
You know, I can this is an interesting question. When you drive down the street and you see, well, look at my real estate sign. Look at my yard sign here. Look at the yard signs, the roadway signs. Many of my competitors won't even put the word Republican on their sign.
Mm.
What sets me apart from my competitors in many ways is the fact that I'm proud to say I am a Republican. I'm running on the Republican ticket. I put it on my literature, and I put it on my roadway signs, and I put it on my yard signs. Go look at my competitors. Many of them do not have the word Republican written anywhere on their road sign. True story. Don't take my word for it. You can Google it right now if you don't believe me. And on my literature clearly says I'm running as a Republican. It has the elephant on there. I'll show the video. Where's the video? Over here? There's a little elephant right there, the Republican elephant, the word Republican. Go look and see if my competitors even put the word Republican on their literature. I'm not saying you can't find it if you don't dig deep enough, but that does set me apart. Other things that set me apart from my competitors are the fact that I'm willing to tell you where I stand on all of the positions. If you look at their literature, you're not going to find it. If you look at their whatever it is that they're talking about, unless you specifically ask them for a particular subject, you may or may not be presented with what you believe they already are.
Good.
It is.
So it means you have convictions.
I have convictions, and I'm committed to those convictions. And if elected, I will go forward and do my best to implement, not just talk about.
Mm-hmm.
So I believe in actions.
I've got one question. Back to term limit. We have 3 co-equal branches of government, correct?
Absolutely correct.
That's not true.
Absolutely incorrect then. The Constitution, there are 3 branches. So we have the legislative branch, we have the judicial branch, and then we have the executive branch. And in theory, they're supposed to be co-equal branches. In reality, in forms of implementation, depending on who is in leadership roles and in what part of history we're talking about and what specific category we are referring to, we don't have equality in reality, but in the Constitution we do.
Right. And I was just just trying to bring some more attention to the fact that congressmen and senators, House representatives are allowed to serve forever as long as they can get reelected. They're also in charge of creating their district. Well, not senators, but representatives are.
Well, the state houses actually do that through the redistricting process. So that would not be a congressman or a senator at the federal level per se, but at the state houses, that is correct. Every 10 years. In fact, we have a redistricting coming up here pretty soon based on the new census that will be out pretty soon. I guess they have to do that next year. So we'll probably pick up 3 more districts in Texas.
Wow.
So
Okay.
at least that's what I have been rumored or heard through the
Texas
rumors.
is red, so
Yes.
you would hope so. One thing that shocked me is looking the other day and studying a little bit of what goes on in San Francisco. One of the elected officials is 85% of the votes on a consistent basis.
Well, it's deeper than that. I've read a long time ago that to beat an incumbent, I mean, let me tell you how difficult it is. Incumbents win over 99% of the time. Now, I don't have the paperwork to prove that in front of me, but I have read that through time. And so from that perspective, when you have someone, regardless of their political stripe, who is going to win 99% of the time, it sure does keep people from running against you. People who might bring a new blend of of culture and a new blend of ideas to the table, you never hear from those people because they can't beat the incumbent.
That's especially true for your in your primaries.
Right.
Yeah, it's hard for you to come in and beat the incumbent Republican.
Correct.
Now, is this seat open or
Kenny Marchant is the current
Okay.
occupant, and he announced on August 8th of last year that he would not be running for re-election. So
Yeah.
it is an open seat from that perspective.
And how many are running?
Originally, there were 7 Republicans, I think 2 independents, and then 7 Democrats. But ballot access filtered 2 of the people who were running for on the Republican side out. So 5 Republicans will be on the ballot, and 7 Democrats will be on their ballot. And I think there's only 1 independent now.
I
We
think
got about
Marshawn was a. Oh, sorry.
Now go ahead.
I was saying I think Marshawn was a Prestonwood guy, wasn't
I don't know.
I don't know.
he? Lived
We
in
got
Carrollton.
about a minute and a half left
Is that to close or a minute for the show?
to close out.
Oh,
We're-
well, then-
we're about to, so tell everybody
You know,
one more thing they need to know.
all right, I'll give you basically a 1 minute jot. If your listeners, if the voters believe in the Made in American tag, and by the way, my suit is made in America. I paid more money for it, but someone in America has a job for 1 more unit length of business for themselves because I paid more money and went out of my way to buy American made. My vehicle is American made. So if you believe in that philosophy, buy made in America, I'm your person. I should vote. You should vote for me. If you also believe that the American dream is about happiness for some and contentment for others and fairness for everybody else, well, that would be me also. You should vote for people who believe in your fairness and believe in your contentment and in your happiness. I humbly ask for your vote in the March 3rd Republican primary. And if you're voting early, that would be February 18. But don't just vote for me because you heard me on the radio. Don't just vote for me because you like the way I look or you don't like the way the other people look or whatever those reasons are. Do your due diligence. Vote for the person who you feel is in alignment with you the most. And if you're going to vote with me, know this. I will fight for every single person in this district because I believe in you and I will this is a metaphoric, but I love you. I realized who I was in the process of running for politics myself. I will fight for every single person in this district, and I am available to the extent that my phone can take as many phone calls as it will. And from the bottom of my heart into your ears, trust me when I say this, you cannot go wrong if you vote for Jaron Liverman. Jaron.
Awesome. Jaron, thank you so much for being here today. I've enjoyed it. Love talking
Absolutely.
politics.
Likewise.
Thank you.
Brian, James, thank you guys for being here with
you.
us. Thank you all for tuning in and watching. We want to thank you all, and we'll be back next week with another group of co-hosts talking about business and how to go from acceptable to exceptional. So don't forget to follow us on Instagram, follow us on Facebook. Our YouTube channel is up and running now, and you can find all of our sponsors at #thedifference.com. So don't forget, it's hard to make a difference until you're consistent in doing the things that make the difference. We'll see you guys next week.